Welcome to today's historical deep dive into a life utterly unlike your own. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. You do not wake gently. You are jolted into consciousness by the relentless, gnawing cold that has seeped into your very bones overnight. The fire, a precious, transient luxury, died hours ago, leaving the small, windowless hovel damp and biting. The air is thick and heavy, with the smell of damp earth from the floor. Stale straw you share with the pigs and chickens huddled nearby for any scrap of shared warmth, and the lingering, smoky ghost of the wood smoke clinging to the rough-hewn logs of the walls. Your thin wool tunic offers little protection against the pervasive chill. You pull the threadbare blanket, stiff with age and dirt, tighter around your shoulders, a meager defense against the siege of the elements. Outside, the first faint, grudging light of dawn does battle with the persistent gloom, heralded by the insistent, arrogant crowing of a rooster and the heartbreakingly familiar sound of your youngest child's hacking cough in the corner. This isn't mere discomfort. It's a primal confrontation with the indifferent elements, a daily reminder of your deeply fragile existence. Your first conscious thought is not a pleasant memory, nor a hope for the day, but a stark, immediate calculation of dwindling resources. Is there enough dried bread left from yesterday? Did the pigs, your small, vital capital, survive the night's cold? Will the aching in your joints, a constant companion, allow you to work the Lord's fields today? You've been alive for perhaps 14 years, old enough now to be considered a woman by this world's harsh standards, to have survived childhood's deadly gauntlet that claimed so many, to have seen enough death of infants, neighbors, friends, farm animals, hopes, to know intimately your own acute fragility. In this world, 14 is middle-aged. Childhood, that brief, brutal period defined mostly by vulnerability and slightly fewer labor expectations, is long past. You are now simply another labor unit, subject to the unpredictable whims of nature, the often cruel demands of the Lord whose land you work, and the inscrutable will of God, whose saints you pray to, but whose true intentions feel terribly distant. There is no time, or energy, or even concept for dreams in the way you might understand them. There is only the stark, immediate reality of survival, measured in mouthfuls of gruel and hours of light. But persistent chill is not just physical. It is the ever-present hand of scarcity itself, a cold whisper of doubt and dread breathed into the fragile promise of dawn. This daily battle for warmth and food, for mere existence, against overwhelming odds is not an occasional hardship. It is the baseline of your life. Every day begins with this visceral, undeniable reminder of your vulnerability. You survived the night, but can you survive the day? The question is not rhetorical. It is the quiet, desperate prayer on your lips as you push yourself out of the straw, the smell of animal and damp earth rising with you. The packed earth floor is cold beneath your bare feet. Smoke stings your eyes, clinging to the rough-hewn rafters overhead. A constant, acrid perfume of peat and damp wood. This is your world. A single, windowless room where the wind whistles through gaps in the wattle and daub walls, and the rain sometimes finds its way through a leak in the thatch. Beside you, your wife stirs on her straw pallet. The rustle of the dry stalks, a familiar sound. A child whimpers in their sleep on the other side. And huddled near the warmth of where the fire was, a sow snuffles contentedly, her body heat a small but significant comfort against the persistent chill. There is no privacy here, not as you understand it today. Every cough, every whispered word, every moment of joy or sorrow or fear unfolds in this shared space. Your few possessions are simple. A rough wooden chest holding spare rags and dried herbs. A couple of lopsided clay pots for boiling thin gruel. Perhaps a single, precious iron cooking pot hanging over the cold hearth. Tools. A hoe, a sickle, a simple saw hang on wooden pegs hammered into the wall. There are no ornaments, no objects bought for pleasure alone. Everything serves a function for the collective survival of the household. This isn't seen as abject poverty, but simply the natural order of things. You have what you need to subsist, to work the land, to keep the hunger at bay for another day. The concept of personal belongings is fluid. Your tools are for the family's labor. The food cooked in the pot feeds everyone under this roof. It forces an intense, often fraught interdependence. Sickness spreads like wildfire in these close quarters. A cough from one child, quickly becoming a rattle in another. A quarrel erupts over a scrap of food, witnessed by all. Yet survival depends on cooperation, on each member doing their part, from dawn until exhausted collapse. Today, identity is often found in solitude, in personal space, carved out from the world, in possessions that reflect individual taste. But here, identity is forged in shared physical space, in mutual need, in the collective, unending effort to simply make it to the next season, to see the grain ripen, to hope no new plague sweeps through. It's a strange intimacy, born of necessity. The breath of the livestock warms you. The snores of your family fill the silence. It is a life stripped down to its bare essentials, where self is inseparable from the small, fragile unit you inhabit. Could you find connection in this world of shared breath and inescapable proximity? A world with no locks on the door and little to call your own? Or would the constant, undeniable presence of others, human and animal alike, suffocate you? Ask yourself, Could your identity be built on the shared necessity of warmth, food, and mutual defense against the harsh realities outside? The steam off the gray gruel is a momentary comfort, a fragile veil lifted from the cold air of the hut. You sit by the rekindled fire, the wood spitting weakly. This bowl before you, thick and uniform, is the breakfast of ale and gruel. It is not sustenance enjoyed, but sustenance endured. Made from whatever grains survived the harvest, the humble oats, perhaps some hardy barley or bitter rye, it offers calories, not comfort. Beside you, the youngest coughs again, a raw sound in the quiet. You dip the wooden spoon into the mass, the texture heavy and dull against the wood. You wash it down with weak ale. Brewed locally, yes, and safer than the uncertain water drawn from the common well, or the polluted stream running through the village. It has little alcohol, just enough fermentation to kill some of the ills the water might carry. It's thin, slightly sour, another taste endured. There is no meat. Meat is a luxury for feast days, for landowners, for those higher up, the unforgiving ladder of this life. Rarely is there cheese, perhaps a small hard piece if the single cow yielded well, and the mice haven't found the larder yet. A few withered root vegetables, saved from the last yield, might be boiled in with the gruel if you are truly fortunate, offering a fleeting hint of sweetness or earth. This is not a meal for pleasure. It is purely fuel, just enough dense, difficult-to-digest starch to power your body for the punishing labor that waits beyond the low door. The plowing, the sowing, the endless weeding, the back-breaking harvest that might yield enough to repeat this cycle. Hunger is not an occasional inconvenience. It is a familiar ache, a low hum beneath your consciousness that never truly leaves. This meager bowl pushes it back for a few hours, grants a temporary reprieve before it returns. Gnawing. The scarcity of food dictates so much of life, drawing stark, unyielding lines across fate. It determines when or if you can take a wife. You need land or service on land that can potentially support another mouth, then children. It sharpens the desperation during the lean years when the blight hits, or the rains fail, or the Lord takes too large a share. Years when you chew on bark, when foraging becomes a dangerous gamble, when choices are made that you pray the saints or God Himself will understand and forgive. Food isn't just sustenance in this world. It is power for those who control it, a form of status, however low your own share may be, and the absolute, brutal measure of survival itself. Hold this heavy spoon in your hand. Chew this gritty gruel. Reflect on your own last meal. How much thought did you give to its origin? The soil it grew in, the hands that tended it, the complex web of transport and trade. How much thought to its cost, not just in coin, but in the sheer human effort required to produce it. For you, here, in this moment in time, every spoonful is the direct, undeniable result of your labor. The land's fickle, terrifyingly unpredictable generosity, and a constant, desperate struggle against deficiency, against starvation hovering at the edge of the village like the wolves in winter. We worry about calories and nutrients today, often from a place of abundant, overwhelming excess, navigating choices between organic or local, between indulgence and health. For you, here, it is about any calories, any sustenance, just enough dense, difficult energy packed into this gray mass to keep the body moving, to stave off the collapse, to survive another day. The beliefs and superstitions woven into the fabric of your world are often tied to this very struggle. You know to leave a portion for the spirits of the field, to hang offerings at the edge of the woods before planting. Not because you fully believe in the old ways, perhaps, but because you cannot afford not to. Every potential advantage, every appeasement, every hopeful ritual is grasped at, a desperate plea against the terrifying randomness of the yield. The church tells you to pray for daily bread, and you pray with a fervor born of gnawing emptiness, understanding the literal weight of those words in a way the cushioned future cannot. Was it faith that prompted the extra prayer before sowing? Or simply the raw, primal fear of what failure would mean? The specter of the hungry season stretching endlessly. This gruel is more than food. It is boiled down fear, hope, and the grim determination to simply continue. You push open the rough wooden door, stooping to clear the low frame. The air outside is sharper, carrying the myriad smells of the village, an olfactory tapestry woven from necessity and proximity. Wood smoke from other hearths bites at your nostrils, a constant signal of life, warmth, and cooking fires, mingling with the unavoidable pungency of animal dung. The cost of livestock living cheek by jowl with humans. Damp straw, the bedding of people and beasts alike, adds an earthy, decaying note. And yes, that sharp, acidic tang on the breeze, the communal privy pit, a necessary evil, a constant reminder of shared functions and the ever-present battle against foul humors and potential pestilence. The sounds wash over you, a constant, low murmur that forms the village's heartbeat. The clatter of tools, a hoe striking stubborn earth, a cooper hammering hoops onto a barrel, a blacksmith's distant, rhythmic clang. The lowing of cattle, the bleating of sheep, the squawk of chickens, the living capital of the community, their health and fertility, a shared anxiety. The chatter of voices, a never-ending stream of gossip, negotiation, complaint, and comfort, weaving through the air like threads. Children cry, women scold, men call out instructions or observations. A distant hammer continues its beat, building or repairing, a sound of creation in a world defined by constant decay and struggle. This village isn't just a collection of wattle and daub huts clustered around a church and manor. It's an organism, a single, breathing entity, where each part knows the function and the flaws of the others. Here, everyone knows everyone else's business. Your neighbor saw you argue with your wife last night. The baker knows if you paid him promptly for your bread or if you're running a debt. The priest knows if you missed Mass. The midwife knows who is barren and who is fertile, who conceived in wedlock and who did not. Your successes are noted with cautious approval or thinly veiled envy. Your failures are whispered about by the firelight. Your shames can follow you like a shadow, marking you in the eyes of the community for years. Reputation is everything, more valuable than silver, often more vital than skill. Your standing in this tight-knit community isn't just social status, it is your social safety net. If your roof collapses, who helps you rebuild? If your child falls ill, who brings a scrap of broth? If the harvest fails, whose door can you knock upon for a shared crust? It is the people whose good opinion you have cultivated, whose trust you have earned through honest dealing, hard work, and adherence to community norms. You are not an individual defined by your unique talents or aspirations in the way we might understand it today. You are defined, first and foremost, by your family. Your lineage dictates much of your place and potential. Then, by your honesty. A dishonest man is a danger to the fragile web of trust. And by your willingness to contribute to the shared life, helping with the harvest, participating in village work, showing up when disaster strikes. This constant visibility, this perpetual state of being known and judged, can be incredibly stifling. There is little room for individuality, for eccentricity, or for deviation from the accepted path. To stand out too much in any way, whether in wealth, behavior, or belief, can attract suspicion or ostracism. The quiet life is the safe life. Yet, while it offers little privacy, this unyielding social structure provides a crucial, if informal, network of support in a world with no formal welfare systems, no hospitals in the modern sense, no distant government aid. Today, we can choose our communities, online forums, clubs based on shared hobbies, neighborhoods selected for convenience or aesthetic. We can maintain degrees of anonymity, revealing only what we wish to share. Your community is assigned by birth, physically unavoidable, and your survival literally depends on maintaining good standing within its constant, watchful gaze. A bad reputation isn't just embarrassing. It can mean slow starvation, cold, or isolation in illness. It's an ironic safety. The price of belonging is the surrender of self. But that surrender is the only protection against a world far more dangerous outside the village bounds. Ask yourself, would you feel stifled, suffocated by the lack of privacy, the constant surveillance? Or would you find a profound, anchoring comfort in the deep, ancient roots and the mutual obligation that pulsed through this constant, physical village presence, knowing that though you were never alone, you were also, perhaps, never truly free? The pre-dawn chill bites as you step outside, not towards comfort, but towards the obligation of the fields. Smoke ghosts from thatched roofs across the cluster of homes. Others are stirring too. You join the quiet procession heading towards the great, open stretches of land that feed you all and belong to none of you. Here, the true labor begins. This is the communal land, divided into strips, each family working parcels scattered across the great fields, a patchwork managed by ancient custom and overseen by the Lord's reeve. Your hands, already tough as leather, find the worn wood of the yard. This is no gleaming steel plow turning perfect furrows, but a simple wooden tool, sometimes tipped with iron if you are lucky, designed to scratch the soil surface, not invert it. You grip the handles, leaning your weight against the stubborn earth. Before you, a pair of oxen, their breath pluming in the cool air, strain against their yoke. Their massive, slow power is necessary to drag even this simple implement through the compacted soil. You guide them, walking the rough ground, a relentless, back-breaking rhythm. If not plowing, you might be behind someone else, breaking up the stubborn clods the yard leaves behind with a heavy hoe, each swing a jolt up your arms and into your aching back. Or perhaps it's sowing season, and you walk with a steady gait, scattering precious seed from a woven basket, trusting it to the earth, hoping the birds don't claim too much. The work is sun-up to sundown, a relentless, repetitive grind dictated by the seasons and the unforgiving demands of the soil. Your hands become monstrously calloused and cracked, dirt permanently etched under broken fingernails. Your back is a constant, dull ache, your muscles perpetually weary. This isn't a job. It's existence distilled to its barest elements. The connection to the earth is absolute, immediate, and raw. Your very survival is tied directly to the fertility of this soil, the precarious success of these crops. There is no safety net, no complex, abstract economy of paper and numbers. There is only the tangible reality of grain growing or failing to grow. This deep, physical, daily interaction fosters a complex relationship with the land, a profound reverence for its life-giving power, mixed with a bitter resentment for the crushing toil it demands and the absolute lack of guarantees it offers. We speak of connecting with nature today, often as a leisurely escape, a pleasant hobby. For you, connection is existential, a daily, brutal wrestle for life itself against the unpredictable whims of the soil and the sky. You pray for sun, you pray for rain, you pray for protection from blight and pests, often uncertain if your meager efforts or your desperate prayers hold more sway. Ask yourself, could you face this relentless, uncertain grind, knowing your entire future, your family's survival, rests solely on the outcome of this muddy, back-breaking partnership with an indifferent earth under a capricious sky? Or would the sheer, unending struggle break you, perhaps prompting a desperate prayer to a saint of harvests, or a fearful avoidance of the dark corners of the field where older things might dwell, things that might curse the yield? The line between practical effort and superstitious appeasement is often as blurred as the dust rising from the field. A sudden chill bites the morning air, sharper than a hound's tooth. You step outside, pulling your rough wool cloak tighter, and feel the ground, hard, frozen. The spring planting was weeks ago. If the frost lingers, the shoots, they are dead. A year's bread withered before it even broke the surface. You stare at the sky, a pale, indifferent blue. It holds your life in its vast, capricious hand. This isn't merely inconvenience. It's a direct assault. A hard rain, relentless for days, doesn't just dampen spirits. It can wash away the precious seed right out of the earth, turning nascent fields into muddy, unusable swamps. A drought, stretching week after agonizing week, bakes the soil solid, cracks appearing like wounds on skin, promising yields turning to dust and failure. And the hailstorm, God's own stones falling from heaven, shattering a year's hope, your family's food, in a terrifying, percussive minutes. You watch the clouds like a condemned soul watches the gallows, a sickening mixture of dread and desperate, futile hope churning in your gut. There is no insurance here, no kingsman arriving with relief supplies, no global market to import grain from lands blessed by kinder skies. There is only the uncertain, stubborn resilience of nature itself and the fragile, often broken hope held in prayer. Your existence is lashed, inescapably, to forces utterly beyond your understanding or control. This breeds a profound, bone-deep sense of powerlessness, of fatalism that settles upon you like dust on a neglected shelf. Why plan too far ahead? Why strive for more than the bare minimum? A single storm, a late frost, a blighting wind can undo a lifetime of scraping and toiling in an afternoon. This weather is not just bad. It is perceived, felt, and interpreted. It is divine displeasure, the wrath of God visited upon a sinful people. Or perhaps it is the devil's cold, destructive work, aimed at starving the faithful into despair. Sometimes it's simply the harsh, unyielding reality of a world fallen from grace, where thorns and thistles are the natural yield of cursed ground. Consider how much control you feel you possess today. Insulated homes, predictive weather models that tell you the hour of the next shower, global food supply chains that bring warmth and plenty regardless of your local conditions. Your world, the one you now inhabit, is one of raw, terrifying exposure. A change in the wind can mean the difference between a meager meal tonight and an empty belly stretching towards oblivion. The bells of the church tower aren't just for Mass. They ring to ward off lightning during a storm. Their peals, a desperate sonic prayer against the fury descending from the heavens. Would you be consumed by this constant, unpredictable threat of the natural world, bowing your head under every cloudburst? Or would you find a strange, stark peace in surrendering, utterly, to forces so much greater than yourself? It wasn't faith that guaranteed survival, but a relentless, often futile struggle against nature's cruel hand, punctuated by prayers whispered into the indifferent wind. The air is thick with the smell of drying grain. Another harvest gathered, the product of aching backs and blistered hands, of prayers muttered for sun and rain. But the bounty on your threshing floor is not entirely your own. It belongs in significant part to Him, the Lord. His heavy share, perhaps a third, sometimes more, stacked high, waiting to be hauled away. It's the physical manifestation of your station, a constant reminder that your labor feeds another first. You set aside sacks of the best grain, drive a designated fowl or livestock towards his manor gates. This is your rent, paid in kind, ripped from the sweat of your brow and the soil you tend but do not own. Or worse, you spend days toiling not on your own narrow strips, but on his vast personal lands, his domain. Your own field lies neglected while you ensure his barns are full, his table laden. There is no negotiating the timing, no choice. His work comes before yours, always. The unspoken threat of his displeasure, the very real power he wields, ensures compliance. You watch your own ripening crop, vulnerable to storm or pestilence, while you scythe his hay, a knot of worry tightening in your gut. Then come the fees, the constant bleed of your meager resources. You must grind your grain at his mill, the only one for miles, paying a toll in flour or coin for the privilege. Your dough must be baked in his communal oven, another fee exacted. To gather firewood from the forest you live beside, you owe him again. Even in death, he claims his due. A Harriet, a tax taking the best beast or most valuable possession from the deceased's family. A final, chilling reminder of his ownership extending even beyond the grave. He is the ultimate authority here, the lawgiver, the landlord, the figure whose word is fate. Sometimes, yes, he offers protection from raiders or rival lords, a grudging service for which you pay dearly. But this feudal system is the iron cage of your social and economic existence. You are not a free agent. You are bound to the land, and through it, to him. There is resentment simmering beneath the surface, a quiet bitterness at his relative ease, his fine clothes, his plentiful table, while your family subsists on pottage and rough bread. You see him ride by, perhaps oblivious, perhaps disdainful, while you stoop in the mud. Yet there is also a weary, grinding acceptance. This is the way the world is structured. The priest preaches divine hierarchy. The seasons turn regardless of your burden, and the Lord's power feels as immutable as the earth itself. It is a system of profound dependency, not just on the capricious whims of nature for a good harvest, but on a human master who holds your life and livelihood in his hands. Today, we navigate complex systems of rent, taxation, and corporate power, different structures built on extracting value. But the fundamental relationship, the one between those who produce and those who claim a share, persists in new forms. Could you navigate this system where your landlord held power over your very life and liberty, accepting your place in a rigid, unchanging social order, knowing that your hardest work only guaranteed his comfort, not your security? The air holds the scent of wood smoke and damp earth, thick with the lives intertwined within these few dozen huts. You stand by the well, drawing water, your back aching from the day's labor. This isn't just a collection of homes. It's the universe you inhabit, the complete canvas of your social world. Every face is known, every history shared, every triumph or failure a matter for collective discussion. Village whispers and ties, beyond the smoke, curling from your own small hearth, lie the watchful eyes and listening ears of neighbors. Here, reputation isn't a backstracked concept. It's the fabric you wear, visible to everyone. A careless word muttered in haste, a debt unpaid, a glance exchanged at the wrong moment. These things ripple through the village like stones dropped in the well. Disputes are settled not by distant law, but by community pressure, by the weight of shared opinion. Perhaps overseen by the reeve, a man elected from among you, burdened with managing the communal fieldwork, the endless tasks the Lord demands. He is one of your own, yet holds a sliver of authority that can feel both comforting and deeply intrusive. The priest, though perhaps not born here, becomes a fixed star in this small constellation. He is the voice of God, yes, but also the keeper of records, the mediator of minor squabbles, the one you confess your fears to, whether they be of eternal damnation or a neighbor's evil eye. He is the link to the wider spiritual world, a world believed to be teeming with saints ready to intercede, and demons lurking in the shadows of the woods or the corners of the mind. His blessings feel vital, his disapproval a chilling pronouncement. This tight-knit world offers a lifeline. When the fever takes hold of your child, it is not the Lord who arrives, but the neighbor who shares a poultice passed down through generations. When harvest pressure mounts, hands appear from other cottages, sharing tools, trading a day's labor for a promise of help next season. A few precious vegetables might appear on your doorstep if your own crop fails. This shared hardship forges deep bonds, born of necessity rather than choice. But this proximity also breeds its own kind of poison. Rivalry simmers beneath the surface. Over the best plot of land, a stray hen, a perceived insult from years past. Suspicion flowers easily in the close confines. Whispers turn to accusations, and broken promises can feel like personal betrayal, requiring swift, often harsh, social correction. Conformity isn't just preferred, it's essential for survival. To stand out, to deviate too much from the accepted norms of behavior, dress, or even thought, is to court disaster. A strange habit, a solitary walk, a refusal to join the communal celebration, these things mark you. You become an outsider in the only world you know. The pressure to fulfill your expected role, as wife, husband, laborer, daughter, is immense, enforced by the constant, subtle, inescapable gaze of everyone around you. This collective identity is powerful, binding you together in shared purpose and shared fear. But it can also feel suffocating, a constant, quiet tyranny. In a modern world where you can walk down a street of strangers, change cities, or disappear into the anonymity of a crowd, this medieval village is a fishbowl. Your life is lived entirely within the scrutiny, and paradoxically, the unwavering support network of these familiar faces. We yearn for authentic community today, often seeking it through fleeting digital connections. Your community is given, inescapable, its bonds forged not online, but in the shared muck of the field, the communal warmth of the church, the low hum of gossip and fear that binds souls tighter than any modern contract. Ask yourself, would you thrive in this intense, inescapable social fishbowl, where everyone knows your history and expects you to play your part? Or would you yearn, ache for the distance and blessed anonymity of the world that came after? The rasping breath tears at the quiet night. Beside you, the youngest child burns with fever, their small body tossing on the straw-filled mattress. This is the reality. Sickness is not a distant threat or a concept whispered in sermons. It is a frequent, unwelcome resident in your home. You have seen it before, the sudden onset, the rapid decline. You have seen fevers sweep through the village like a reaper, taking the strongest youth or the most fragile elder without distinction. A simple cut from a scythe or a splinter from the loom can fester, turning limb black before your eyes. A swift march to the grave. There is no understanding of the tiny, unseen creatures we call germs. There are no potions brewed in sterile labs, no pills to swallow that promise swift recovery. Instead, the air itself is suspect, the bad air rising from the bog, the chill that settles in the bones. Or perhaps it is an imbalance of the humors, the essential fluids that govern the body, requiring leeches or harsh purges. Sometimes the whispers turn darker. Could old Agnes down the lane have cast an envious eye? Could this illness be the heavy hand of God, a punishment for a sin you didn't even know you committed? Your battles are not fought with science, but with belief. When illness strikes, you clutch at any available straw. You might seek out the local healer, often a woman known for her knowledge of herbs. She knows the forest, the fields, the ancient remedies passed down through generations, a repository of practical, if often insufficient, wisdom. She might brew a tea from willow bark to ease pain, or prepare a poultice of bread and spiderwebs for a wound. Methods sometimes surprisingly effective, often utterly useless. You might hang charms above the doorway, perform small, specific rituals meant to appease unseen forces, or pray with desperate fervor to Saint Sebastian for protection against plague, or Saint Apollonia for toothaches. This is a surprising insight. Faith isn't always abstract. It's often intensely pragmatic, a catalog of divine specialists you appeal to, based on your immediate, brutal need. But more often than not, you are left with profound helplessness. You sit by the bedside, watching a loved one waste away, offering only cool water, whispered prayers, and the ineffective poultices. The quiet resignation is a heavy cloak that settles over every household. Death is not a final, distant event. It is a constant neighbor, an expected visitor, at every feast, every harvest, every birth. This constant proximity to mortality shapes your entire worldview, making the spiritual health of the soul, its fate in the terrifying unknown beyond the veil, as vitally important as the fragile health of the body. Ask yourself, how would you cope with the crushing everyday reality of watching someone you love slip away with nothing but faith, folk wisdom, and acceptance of your own powerlessness to offer? Your fight against death isn't about conquering it, but about enduring its presence, clinging to hope through ritual and prayer, and finding solace in the promise of an afterlife you desperately need to believe in. There is melancholy in the earnest application of remedies you know deep down are insufficient. Yet, hope persists, stubborn and resilient, like a weed pushing through cobblestones. The sharp, insistent toll of the church bell slices through the morning mist, not the joyous peal for a saint's day, but the slow, measured clang of mourning. Someone else has gone. Perhaps the baker's wife, worn down by too many winters and too little food. Perhaps young Thomas, whose fever broke him overnight. Death here is not a distant thought, a matter for faraway hospitals or hushed whispers. It is the wind under the door, the chill in the bone, a familiar face glimpsed too often in the churchyard mud. You have held death in your arms. You know the terrible stillness of a child's body that was warm minutes before. You know the sight of a father collapsed in the field, brought low by a sudden, violent flux. Grief isn't an event you move past. It's a neighbor who lives down the lane, whom you see at the market, whose absence leaves a perpetual ache in the communal heart. The village is a constantly changing tapestry, threads cut short with brutal regularity. When death claims one of your own, sudden reality, the rituals unfold with practiced solemnity. The body is washed, stripped, wrapped in a simple shroud, often the same fabric you wear in life, a linen or wool, a final, humble garment. Neighbors come. They sit vigil through the night, sharing what little bread and ale can be spared. Their low murmurs and shared tears, a necessary dam against the terrifying finality. This wake isn't just mourning. It's a vital act of communal survival, a way to process the shock, to remind each other that no one grieves alone. Though the emptiness in your chest feels entirely your own. The procession to the churchyard is short, trudging through mud or snow. The priest speaks of dust and ashes, of a soul commended to God. You cling to the promise of paradise, of a reunion in a world without pain, but the weight of the newly turned earth is heavy on your soul. The fear of hell, a fiery alternative described with vivid detail, sharpens your piety, makes every muttered prayer feel urgent. Yet the stark reality is the grave, the cold ground, the absence that screams louder than any sermon. There is no illusion of controlling life's fragile span. You plant crops hoping for harvest. You build a home hoping it stands against storms. But you know, deep in your marrow, that life can be extinguished like a candle in a gust of wind. Your world is saturated with this awareness, a constant memento mori, a reminder of the fleeting nature of your existence. Does this ceaseless brush with mortality make life feel incredibly precious, each breath a miracle? Or does the sheer inevitability simply crush the spirit, leaving you numb to the constant, quiet terror? The small stone church at the center of your village isn't just a building. It is the anchor of your reality. The bell, hanging in its squat tower, doesn't merely mark time. It tolls the rhythm of existence itself, calling you to dawn prayer before the sun dares show its face, signaling noon rest from the fields, and finally summoning you to vespers as shadows lengthen. Every clang is a reminder of God's watchful eye. You step through the low, heavy door. The air inside is cooler, thicker with the scent of beeswax candles, old stone, and the faint, lingering perfume of incense. It is dim, even on a sunny day, light filtering grudgingly through narrow, often unglazed windows, or catching the gilded edges of painted icons if your church is wealthy enough. Mass is less about intellectual understanding. The Latin is a mystery you only grasp snatches of, and more, a profound, physical experience. The priest's resonant chant, the genuflections of the community around you, the rising smoke of the censer, the taste of the communion wafer. It is a ritual binding you together, lifting you, however briefly, out of the grime and struggle of daily life. This is the place where the divine touches the mundane. The priest himself is more than just a man. He is the shepherd of souls, the intermediary between your fearful heart and the incomprehensible power of the Almighty. His pronouncements carry the weight of eternal life or damnation. His blessing can offer comfort against unseen evils. His disapproval feels like the weight of God's own displeasure. Faith here isn't an abstract philosophy. It is the operating manual for the universe. Why did your neighbor's crop fail? God's test. Why did the fever take the child? God's mysterious will. Or perhaps the work of demons, permitted by divine plan. A good harvest isn't luck. It's a blessing earned through piety and prayer. Saints are not distant figures in stories, but powerful allies to be petitioned. Saint Sebastian against plague, Saint Jude for lost causes, the Virgin Mary for mercy and solace. Relics, even fragments of bone or cloth, hold potent power, offering protection or healing. But just as real as the blessings are the curses. The devil and his legions of demons are not metaphors, but tangible threats, whispering temptations, causing misfortune, waiting to claim your soul. Fear is as fundamental a component of your faith as hope. The terror of eternal fire in hell burns brighter than any earthly flame. This complex tapestry of formal doctrine, ancient folk beliefs, and raw superstition provides the only framework you have to make sense of a brutal, unpredictable world. It offers profound comfort in shared ritual and the promise of paradise. Yet it also instills a paralyzing fear of judgment and sin. Every illness, every bad turn could be a punishment. The surprising insight is how thoroughly this faith, born of necessity and deep-seated fear, integrated into survival itself. It wasn't just what you believed, but how that belief enabled you to persevere through unimaginable hardship. It gave meaning to suffering and a path to salvation. Ask yourself, in a world where life is cheap and unpredictable, could you find solace in a faith that demands absolute surrender and threatens eternal torment, seeing divine will in every fleeting moment? The milk won't churn. For an hour, your arm has ached, the dash plunging and rising, but the cream remains stubbornly liquid. A cold dread tightens in your chest. It's not just bad luck. Someone or something means you ill. A witch's curse? The evil eye from old Agnes down the lane? The devil's own spite making your labor fruitless? You stop, take a deep breath, and begin the ritual. You make the sign of the cross over the churn, whisper a blessing to the Virgin Mary, perhaps even drop a red-hot ember into the cream, carefully, quickly, to break the unseen spell. This isn't mere folklore, it's survival. Life is a battlefield, not just against hunger, sickness, and winter, but against a teeming, invisible world bent on your destruction. Malevolent spirits lurk at crossroads after dark. The devil whispers temptations that could damn your immortal soul. Witches, in league with infernal powers, can blight your crops or sicken your child with a glance. Your understanding of cause and effect is profoundly different. A crop failure isn't just poor soil or weather. It's the wrath of an offended saint or the curse of a neighbor. A child's fever isn't just bad humors. It's a demon clinging to their small frame. So you arm yourself, not with steel, but with faith and practice. You hang a horseshoe, points up, to catch good fortune and ward off evil over your door. You sew a blessed amulet, perhaps containing a relic sliver or a protective prayer written on parchment, into your child's tunic. You perform specific, time-honored actions when sowing the first seed. A blessing, a prayer, a small offering to the earth itself. When livestock falls ill, the priest might be called for a blessing, holy water sprinkled, a special chant recited. These aren't quaint customs. They are the practical, first-line defenses in a world where the invisible threat feels as real and often more terrifying than the wolf at the door. Without the understanding of microbes, chemistry, or meteorology, the vast spaces of the unknown are filled by the supernatural. It offers an explanation, however terrifying, for inexplicable events. It also offers a method of potential control. By performing the right ritual, by appeasing the correct power or warding off the wrong one, you feel you have some agency in a world that constantly reminds you of your powerlessness. The sheer volume of these small acts throughout a day, a week, a year, blessing the milk, crossing yourself when passing a church, spitting for luck, avoiding unlucky paths, carrying a saint's medal, speaks to the constant, low-level hum of fear, and the desperate hope that these actions offer a thin, permeable shield. It's a world where doing everything right by earthly standards isn't enough. You must also navigate the treacherous currents of the unseen realm. Could you live constantly performing small acts to appease powers you don't fully understand, forever watchful for the unseen hand of misfortune? The mud clings to your boots, same as yesterday, same as last month. The field seems endless, the work a constant ache in your back. The days bleed into one another, marked only by the sun's grudging rise and fall, the changing bite of the wind. Survival is the baseline, etched into your bones. But then, the bells toll differently, a sharper, more joyful peal cutting through the gray air. A whisper passes through the village. A feast is coming, not a daily meal, scraped together from thin gruel and tough bread, but a feast. Tied to the turning wheel of the year, perhaps the successful gathering of the harvest, after weeks of back-breaking labor and prayers against blight, or a saint's day of particular local importance, or the deep winter light of Christmas. These are more than mere celebrations. They are necessary ruptures in the fabric of relentless toil. Anticipation becomes a physical hunger in itself, not just for the rare taste of roasted meat or sweeter ale, but for the release, for the knowledge, however brief, that the yoke is lifted. The day arrives. The air vibrates with activity that isn't labor. Fires crackle in the communal areas, sending plumes of fragrant smoke. Real smoke, not just the thin wisp from your own hearth. Someone has perhaps slaughtered a pig, a rare luxury. The smell of roasting flesh, of bubbling stews, of bread baked fresh and abundant. These scents are richer than any perfume. People gather, faces scrubbed cleaner than usual, perhaps wearing a scrap of brighter cloth. The hall fills, bodies pressed close against the chill, warmed by the roaring fire and the shared exhalation of relief. Music starts, a fiddler with calloused hands, a simple drumbeat. Feet begin to move awkwardly at first, then with growing abandon. Laughter rings out, loud and uninhibited. Stories are told, legends of local heroes, or cautionary tales against the fairies said to steal children during the night. The ale flows, making worries blur at the edges, loosening tongues that are usually silent with fatigue. For a few hours, the constant shadow of famine and sickness recedes. This isn't forced gaiety. It's a desperate, vital flourishing. An insight flickers. This intensity of joy, born from its scarcity, is a form of resistance. It's the human spirit, not merely enduring, but defiantly asserting its capacity for pleasure, even in the face of crushing weight. Is this kind of intense, rare happiness more profound than the diluted, constant diversions of your modern world? Look around the crowded hall. See the farmer who lost a crop to late frost, sharing a tankard with the blacksmith whose hand is perpetually scarred. See the women, usually bent over looms or fires, laughing freely, their voices mingling in song. Community isn't just a shared hardship. It's a shared, precious moment of ease. These feasts reinforce the bonds that literally keep them alive, binding neighbor to neighbor with shared memories of revelry and temporary abundance. It's a psychological harvest, gathered to sustain the spirit through the lean times to come. Yet, There's a melancholy note, isn't there? The knowledge, unspoken but ever present, that this brightness is a fragile thing, a brief candle flickering in the vast, enduring darkness of their ordinary life. The food will run out. The ale will be drunk. The music will fade. And the mud, tomorrow, will still be waiting. The sun, low and heavy, still presses down, but the air hints at autumn's chill. Sweat streaks the dust on your face, blurring the horizon where the field meets the endless sky. This is it. This is the moment. All the back-breaking toil, the constant worry over drought and pestilence, the quiet prayers whispered through hungry nights, has led to the harvest. All around you, the field is a hive of frantic, focused energy. Men swing sickles with rhythmic, practiced strokes, the golden stalks falling in waves. Women and older children follow close behind, gathering the cut grain into armfuls, binding them tightly with straw ties into sheaves. Younger ones scurry, gathering stray ears, tiny hands contributing to the immense effort. There is no hierarchy here in the dust and the sun. Lord and serf may exist outside these fields, but in the desperate urgency of gathering the year's lifeblood, everyone bends their back. Everyone feels the ache in their muscles, the sharp sting of stubble against bare legs. The air vibrates with a palpable tension. Every rustle of grain, every cloud on the horizon, every sudden gust of wind feels weighted with consequence. Will it be enough? This single question hangs unspoken between every worker, tighter than any binding on a sheaf. Enough to pay the Lord his due, the crushing percentage that feels like taking the very bread from your mouth. Enough to store away in the precious, guarded granary to see you through the lean months of winter. Enough to ward off the gnawing specter of hunger that is never far from the edges of your world. A good harvest is more than just food. It is a reprieve, a year won back from the brink. It is a wave of immense relief, a profound sense of gratitude that floods the weary soul, a sign that perhaps God has looked down upon you and your community with favor, seen your struggles, and granted sustenance. It validates the endless hours, the hopeful planting, the desperate dependence on forces far beyond your control. But a poor harvest isn't just a disappointment. It is a sentence. It means tightening belts, selling precious, necessary tools just to buy enough grain to survive, falling into debt that can shackle your family for generations, facing the real, physical threat of starvation. It makes the Lord's share feel like a death blow. The old women speak of curses, of angry spirits in the fields, of unseen hands blighting the crop. Because how else could a year's work be so utterly destroyed? Superstition blooms thickest when survival is most precarious, when the rational explanation offers no comfort and no control. This annual cycle, the patient planting, the anxious waiting, the desperate rush of the harvest, the quiet hope for renewal, is the fundamental rhythm of your existence. It is a testament to a patience that spans seasons, a work ethic forged by necessity, and a faith in the land, in the divine, in the simple act of a seed pushing through soil. Today, our economies are vast, abstract networks of numbers on screens, driven by global forces you could never grasp. Your economy is the rich dirt beneath your fingernails, the weight of the grain you bind into sheaves, the dwindling stores in the granary. It is tangible, immediate, and terrifyingly fragile. Could you, in this modern age of infinite choice and digital security, invest an entire year of your life, pour every ounce of your energy, every prayer, into a single outcome decided by sun and rain? Could you face the harvest with this raw mixture of desperate hope and pragmatic, bone-deep fear, knowing, truly knowing, that everything depends on it? You wake before the sun, but the fire is out. The cold bites, not just at your exposed hands, but deep in your chest. Beside you, your youngest coughs, a wet, rattling sound that tightens your gut more than the hunger already does. This isn't the crisp, clean cold of high winter. It's the damp, clinging chill of late January, leaching warmth from stone and bone alike. The world outside is gray and still, activity frozen by the iron grip of the season. There are no fields to work, no gardens to tend, only the stark, skeletal trees against a perpetually low sky. Inside, the last of the harvest dwindles. The dried peas rustle thinly in their sack. The salted meat, if you have any left, is tough and tastes only of salt and the faint memory of summer fat. This is the season of the ache, a constant, low-grade hollowness in your belly that no amount of thin gruel seems to satisfy. Work slows to a crawl. Energy must be hoarded, like the precious scraps of food. Every movement feels weighted. Every task takes longer. The meager warmth of the central hearth, shared with too many bodies in a small space, seems to fight a losing battle against the pervasive cold. You light a single rushlight, its small flame a pathetic defiance against the vast darkness of the house and the season. You remember the harvest feast, a distant echo of warmth and plenty, almost unbelievable now. Superstition thrives in this bleakness. Prayers are whispered not just for food, but for protection against the coughs and fevers that stalk the cold air, picking off the weakest. There are old wives' tales about warding off the frost demons or keeping hunger at bay with charms. Desperate hopes against the grim reality. The village huddles close, not just for shared warmth, but for the fragile strength found in kinship. But even community has its limits when every family's stores are running low. A surprising insight? The true horror of medieval winter wasn't always a sudden dramatic famine, but the long, slow, grinding expectation of acute scarcity, stretching for months with no certain end. It bred a kind of quiet desperation, a constant vigilance against waste, a daily calculation of who needed food most. It wasn't just survival, it was existing on the very threshold of life, knowing the slightest setback, a sudden illness, a storehouse fire, could plunge you into immediate starvation. Today, winter can be a time of cozy lights, abundant food, and festive cheer. For you, It was a season of grim perseverance, a raw reminder of the thin margin of your existence, the close relationship between life and death, the ache of hunger, the persistent chill, the fear for your children's health. These were not temporary discomforts, but the expected landscape of almost half your year. Ask yourself, could you endure months like this? Finding strength not in individual comfort, but in the shared hardship of your community. Facing the hungry wolf at your own door, day after day, with only the faint, distant promise of spring. Could you face winter's tooth without the certainty of the next meal? The sun sets too early in winter, a constant reminder of dwindling resources and the coming lean months. You live in a continuous present, forced into short-term vision by the brutal realities of the world. There is no pension waiting for you when your back finally gives out from years of stooping over the furrows. No bank account holding coin against the inevitable day when fever claims your strength, or an accident breaks a limb, rendering you useless for the harvest. Your safety net wears your face. It is your children, if they survive childhood, and the fragile bonds of your community. This is the weight of tomorrow, a low-grade, persistent ache that settles in your bones alongside the damp of the hut. Will the next harvest be bountiful enough? A blight, a flood, a sudden frost. Any of these could spell starvation, not just for a year, but perhaps for good. Will your sons grow strong enough to help work the land when your own muscles fail? Or will sickness take them, leaving you vulnerable and alone in your old age? Each cough from your youngest in the night ignites a flare of terror, not just for their life today, but for the future they represent. Your only hope against destitution. Planning is a matter of seasons, sometimes weeks. You think about storing enough grain for winter, patching the roof before the next storm, ensuring the livestock survive until spring. The very concept of long-term investment is as alien as the stars. What could you possibly invest? Your labor is required for immediate survival. Career progression? ... Your career is tilling this soil, repairing these tools, tending these animals, until you are physically unable. Then you become a burden, dependent on the charity of family and neighbors. There is no upward mobility, no ladder to climb out of this precarious existence. Your life is a flat, demanding landscape stretching out before you, marked only by the changing seasons and the ever-present threat of loss. It's a constant, visceral anxiety. We today worry about stock market crashes, retirement fund performance, global political instability, complex, often abstract fears. Your fears are immediate, tangible, rooted in the earth and the body. The feel of the grain silo, the flush on a child's cheek, the looming shadow of the Lord's manor and his arbitrary power. He could raise taxes, demand more labor, take your best animal, or even the land itself, for reasons utterly beyond your control or comprehension. This psychological toll, this relentless pressure of immediate, physical uncertainty about the future with almost no cushion against catastrophe, is perhaps the heaviest burden of all. Ask yourself, could you carry the weight of this tomorrow? Could you sleep soundly, knowing your entire future rests solely on the capricious whims of nature, health, and authority, with no system, no savings, no safety net to catch your fall? You vanish back into the earth that sustained you, your struggles and hopes becoming the silent history beneath our feet. The dust settles, covering the footprints of your labor, the ashes of your small fires, the forgotten outlines of your village. It is easy to think of you as utterly gone, separated by centuries, a gulf of progress, a chasm of understanding. Your world of mud and straw, saints and demons, seems utterly alien to our sterile, illuminated present. But look closer. Feel the earth beneath your own feet. That primal fear of scarcity. Isn't it still there? Rebranded now, yes, as economic anxiety. The gnawing insecurity of job loss. The relentless creep of rising costs that threaten to pull the rug out from under fragile comfort. You feared the failed harvest, the blight on the grain. We fear the market crash, the missed rent payment. The fear is the same hunger, just wearing a different, slightly shinier mask. That dependence on systems outside your control. Didn't you bow to the Lord's decree, the Church's word, the unpredictable wrath of nature? Doesn't that echo in our reliance on distant global markets we don't understand? Political decisions made by unseen hands, the fragile technological infrastructure that could crumble with a glitch. Your life was governed by the manor bell and the changing seasons. Ours by abstract algorithms and the ping of a phone. That yearning for community, for belonging and recognition within a group, was it not etched into your bones? Survival was the village. You needed your neighbor's help with the roof, their presence at the birthing bed, their shared lament at the grave. Isn't that what drives us now, often desperately, to seek connection online, in clubs and movements, struggling against the isolation that seems the unintended plague of modern life? You feared being cast out, losing your place by the hearth. We fear being unseen, unheard, disconnected in the digital ether. That constant negotiation with forces beyond your comprehension, the sudden fever, the storm that flattened the crop, the Lord's arbitrary justice. Isn't it present in our own battles with complex, relentless illnesses science still struggles to name? The overwhelming scale of climate change, the sheer, brutal unpredictability of a chaotic world that can change everything overnight. You offered prayers and charms against the unseen. We search data and statistics, hoping to find control in measurement. You lived a life defined by physical labor, constant exposure to the elements, and a deep, unyielding connection to the land and the divine, as you understood it. Your fears were tangible. The wolf at the door, the empty belly, the fever that took a child in days. Your joys were simple and profound. The first green shoot, the successful birth, the shared loaf of bread. We live lives of relative comfort, abstracted labor, often confined to screens and sterile spaces, and complex, often invisible anxieties, existential dread, performance pressure, the fear of not being enough. Have we truly evolved beyond the core human struggle for security, meaning, and belonging? Or have we simply replaced the terror of famine with the fear of financial ruin, the mystery of illness with the cold, impersonal statistics of mortality, the visible, often arbitrary hand of the Lord with the invisible, equally arbitrary hand of the market and the algorithm? You feared the devil's breath in the dark forest. You carried a saint's relic for protection, but you still planted in hope. Despite the crushing weight of vulnerability, the constant threat of hardship, the arbitrary nature of fate, you got up each day and simply kept going. Perhaps that enduring capacity for hope, that relentless drive to simply endure and build and plant and love despite overwhelming odds, is the most fundamental, most human part of your story and ours. We study you not just to know history, but to know ourselves, to see the enduring pulse of survival beating beneath the centuries. They had no legacy carved in stone, but every seed they planted, every prayer they whispered in terror, every act of quiet perseverance in the mud and the cold, built the world we now take for granted. They are not gone.